Hi everybody, my name is Ismael Trevino and this is the Millennial Way Show. Thank you very much for watching us. Thank you very much for being connected right now. Today we are in a very beautiful, special place. This is the Biltmore Hotel in the city of Coral Gables. And today we're going to talk about innovation. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. Maybe it sounds a little bit weird, sometimes scary, sometimes not. And the guest that we have today is a very, very special one. He is the Chief Innovation Officer from IBM, Dr. Bernard Meyerson. Dr. Meyerson, thank you very much for being with all the followers of the Millennial Way Show.
My pleasure.
Dr. Meyerson, our first question will be, for you, how can you define the concept of artificial intelligence?
I tend to avoid using the term artificial intelligence for the simple reason that it conjures up images of something that jumps out of a wall named Terminator and tries to eat you. This is not appropriate. We tend to think of AI more as augmented intelligence. The fact of the matter is, human beings don't scale. You know, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of papers written a month in medicine. The typical doctor finds time to read about 5. What about the other, 9,995 they can't read? And it's no criticism of a doctor. They're human. But machines are really good at this. So a machine can actually absorb that data, and if it's done well, actually find the correlation between the data it sees in all this literature and a question the doctor has asked that might ultimately change somebody's life or save someone's life. And that's the important issue.
So why do you think that everybody gets scared with the term artificial intelligence?
Well, go back, there's a very famous movie, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. You should go look at it. If you haven't seen it, go watch the movie.
Or Terminator.
No, that's the extreme case. But if you watch the movie, at some point this very sweet voice says, "Good morning, Dave," as actually it's murdering all of his friends in a spaceship. Okay, this is not a good start for AI. AI has a history in science fiction that's genuinely ugly. The real world, in fact, if you look at things we run, such as we have Watson Oncology, it basically assists an oncologist by finding all the most modern treatments, giving a statistical probability of success. These things add value to human life. They don't go around eating people's heads. And it's really overcoming a cultural bias because of what we did, which was entertaining, but absolutely no relation to what we're doing now.
You just mentioned Watson. What's doing IBM right now regarding artificial intelligence? Which kind of industries artificial intelligence can or is impacting right now?
It's across the board. If you take a look at, for instance, people who will call up a call center and they want an accurate answer in a financial situation for insurance, you have this assistive agent behind the scenes where instead of some poor agent frantically looking through 300 pages of documentation saying, gee, I wonder what is the answer that I can give, they actually can query Watson directly and it'll immediately come back saying, hey, here it is. Or we can help, for instance, where just an order gets stuck in a pharmacy. Well, if it's a massive pharmacy, you can actually have the system itself. Watson is intelligent enough to look through the entire flow of where that drug might have gone and say, aha, shipped to the wrong place, we'll have it to you in another couple of hours.
How do you see the AI race worldwide? How is doing the United States? How is doing Japan? How is doing China, Russia?
It's pervasive. The unique thing about anything that's, for instance, sourced out on the web, once you create, for instance, we've now moved virtually all of our Watson work out onto a web portal. It's universally available. It doesn't really matter where you sit. If you have access to the web, you have access to it. That is really a level playing field now. I mean, yes, there's a tremendous amount of activity in the US. We were building the basics of AI from many, many years ago. AI is not a new field, as you know. It's been around 30, 40 years. But what has happened now is it's gotten serious in the sense it actually has to do something useful. It wasn't cute. It's not going to play chess or fool you that it's behind a screen and it's actually not a human. It's cute, but not relevant. What's happening now is because we've opened it up and you can get at it from anywhere in the world, that playing field will level very quickly. There are bright people all over the planet. You'd be astonished the progress you're going to see now that everybody has access to it in terms of at least its application. Basic development, there is tremendous history. We certainly have invested unimaginable sums and continue to drive very hard in that space and grow quickly, as do others now. But I think what's going to be the revolution is because it's available in an open forum, around the world the applications will take off.
You said something very interesting in your answers at the beginning of this interview, and is the fact of how AI will predict the future to actually avoid mistakes. I saw that IBM is working also right now, for example, with the driverless cars, the driverless bus for the handicapped people with BMW. Also, well, another different kind of projects. What other projects can you mention that IBM is working with this technology?
You've actually named a bunch of the ones we have out in the open. There aren't, you have to be very respectful of your clients, but what I will tell you is you're on an important point, which is when we use this technology with clients, again, it is about understanding the historical data, taking it, looking at it, and the consequences of that history, so we already know what happened here and what the outcome was, but then extrapolating that into the future so we actually become very predictive. Because again, to change the future, you have to know what's going to happen. And people really, they make a joke, you have a crystal ball. The answer is, yeah.
Mr. Meyerson, in which other kind of areas artificial intelligence is working right now?
It works across the board in all industries. Whether or not you're calling up a call center and an agent in that call center versus digging through hundreds of pages of records, literally just types a query into the drum section behind me, and it basically, and it comes back with, yeah, here's the answer to the query you got, whether it's on finance or health or medicine, whatever the query is. Similarly, in, for instance, aviation maintenance, it helps the person actually maintain the aircraft. And in many cases, at this point, we've trained it to the extent you can actually tell the person who's working on it, it's not that the part is broken, but the behavior of that part says that in 2 days it'll be dead, change it now. And it's kind of science fiction oriented because if you think about it, we're changing the future. If you can predict the future, the failure never actually happens. You actually avoid it. And that's actually a tremendous change where instead of reacting to a problem, you're proactive and fix it before it ever happens.
I was seeing actually that in the world of sports, in golf, in the Masters of Augusta, they were using actually artificial intelligence and Watson to follow up the best moments of the audiences and reacting that, and also like in the sports industry is using artificial intelligence?
Yes, the fact of the matter is that there was an early movie, Moneyball, which talked about the use of statistics to predict outcomes in sports, but it's much deeper than that. You can actually using video, you can use human emotions. And it's really quite spectacular. You're actually able to, from all these inputs, not just one input, but from a huge assortment of inputs, take all that data and come up with insights that you would never see if you just looked at any one of the elements individually.
Dr. Meyerson, how do you see the artificial intelligence in the next 5-10 years?
It'll be pervasive, but it'll be invisible. It's kind of interesting. We take, for instance, calculators where we do math. You just take it for granted. You whip out your mobile device and you punch a couple of numbers and get an answer. It will become that pervasive. These systems are assistive. They're not per se meant to replace human, but rather you can get insights from them that as an individual person, you could not physically have ever looked at the amount of data they stare at. And that's the difference. Machines scale. You want more memory, you know what? You buy more memory. You want more compute power, you get more compute power. People don't work like that. It'd be really nice. I'd love more memory. It doesn't come. So in that case, what happens is all of us will use this essentially in our daily lives and not see it. That's the key. The ideal computing capability and assistive computability is one you just take for granted. You just ask literally, what you want is the day that a farmer in an area which is subject to drought and famine can literally just on a cellular device, cheapest one in the world, a $20 throwaway, call up a number and say, hey, what should I plant that gives my family the best odds of survival? And there should be an intelligent agent somewhere that looks at all the hydrology, looks at the history of rainfall, the future predictions, looks at all the available crops, the nutritional needs in that area, because it knows where the cell tower is, and it tells that farmer, in 2 weeks, sorghum wheat is your best bet. It should be something that intelligent that for this simple question, there's a vast thing that goes on in the background, but all the farmer gets is a straight answer as to, these are your best odds. You want something that easy because it will change society.
all the technological magazines, all the geeks, techies around the world are always asking the $1 million question: what's the next big thing in artificial intelligence? And you are one of the top of the line
Oh boy.
officers, maybe that can answer this question.
What's that worth to you? No. Yeah. Boy. Let me change hats for a moment. I also, for years, led the Meta Council on Emerging Technologies for the World Economic Forum. Our responsibility, myself and a team of about 20 other leaders, was what are the next 10 big things that are emerging in that year? 2016 just went by, the last time we published that list. One of them was what we call emergent open AI. AI has historically been your providence. You know, one person basically worked on it in a company or two or 10, but it was in a narrow area. What we've tried to do, and it's a cultural thing for us, years ago we decided that we're not the only smart guys in the universe. Many companies have never figured that out. And so we support the open source movement where literally you open up access to others outside of the company to work in this field. I think you will see an enormous ecosystem of people and developers around AI, which previously had been basically a constrained element inside of each company uniquely, as opposed to a shared element everybody worked on to really put it responsibly into people's hands.
Dr. Meyerson, final question. What would be your best advice for all this new generation, this millennial generation that are into these kind of topics, that are actually working on their garage, working on these small companies, but are very interested in this evolution of artificial intelligence?
The fact that it's become available as a really open entity where you can literally just go out on the web and there it is. You have access to the portals. It's an opportunity of a lifetime to find applications. It's one thing to have the basic material and to have the basic enablement. We have that out there. The key is figure out where you can make a difference. If you look at what we did, for instance, initially, we worked in oncology. Rather than try to predict the stock market and make some big bucks, saving huge numbers of lives around the globe by automating a process which otherwise some poor, let me put a perspective on it. If a physician sees an unusual case and they want to refer to the documentation and all the literature to understand why this person came down with a particular cancer, what the best treatment protocol is, all that. You're talking about a human being, like I said, can read about 5 papers a month, typically, because they're just incredibly busy trying to save lives. When they queried Watson, it was work done, it's out on the web, it's a Bloomberg video done with Memorial Sloan Kettering a few years ago. The database they had created inside their variant of Watson contained roughly 3,500 textbooks, roughly 250,000 papers, 100,000 clinical studies, and Watson took all of 15 to 17 seconds to go through all of that and come back with, by the way, there's a genetic abnormality in this patient that probably led to this cancer, and by the way, here are the treatments, the top one being 95% effective in 17 seconds. It's not that it replaces the physician who had to then look at that analysis and determine the legitimacy before creating an ultimate treatment plan for this patient.
So do you think that we are in the, not only in the Internet of Things, but in the Internet of Health?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. If you look now, the capability of these systems to run safely in an autonomic mode is improving day by day. Automatic, you talked about self-driving cars. They're not perfect yet, but they're getting better, and with AI, they will improve. All of these things, though, are the future, and what I encourage, it's oddly enough, it's not just encouraging the younger generation coming up through the sciences and technology and startups. I'm not just encouraging them to participate or even lead. Please, go get them. What I'm more worried about is the velocity with which things change today is so high that they also have to reconcile the fact that they will have to learn and adapt continuously. The days of running a business that's unaltered for 20, 30 years are unheard of. Sometimes it literally is 2 days at a time, depending upon the field. And so the new generation, and frankly my generation, all of us to survive have had to just adapt to this tremendous velocity at which this field is moving. But it's a good thing. I mean, if nothing else, Lord knows I'm not bored. My hair hasn't fallen out yet.
Dr. Meyerson, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Last question before we go. The organization told me to ask you, what's the importance of making these kind of events? Why?
Oh, the importance of these events. All of us have day jobs that can be all-consuming. That's not a good thing. My one advice is get a life, get out there and talk to other people. It's one of the foundational things you got to understand is you are not the smartest person in the world. Take my word on this, not in every field. And if you want to meet them, you show up at places like this where you get leaders from many disparate fields. Because in the end, the way that you become unbeatable, in my view, as an organization, is you integrate your skills not just across your own organization, but if you need to fill gaps, for crying out loud, get out there and fill them with other people who bring value. And what I find at meetings like this is I meet a bunch of incredibly bright, motivated people who know what they're doing and have specializations that basically engage with ours. And yes, once in a while they're competitors. You know what? You go out and have a beer with them. It's fine. You know, life won't end. But it's extraordinarily important to have an opportunity like this to engage others who are in sort of parallel spaces, because the adjacent spaces are sometimes where the best opportunities are.
Well, there you have it, guys. Dr. Bernard Meyerson, the Chief Innovation Officer of one of the biggest IBM company. Thank you very much, Dr. Meyerson. It was a pleasure and honor to have you in the Millennial Way Show.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.